hope for chaos then into turn one. 3 lights, 4 lights, and the first ever Grand Prix in the Middle East is go! Anyone making a break for it? Looking for Toyota through the middle. Jenson Button and Takuma Sato away well. It looks like the 2 Ferraris have got it comfortably though into turn one. Good start though from Jarno Trulli. He's up into 4th place as one of the Williamses goes around the outside of Rubens Barrichello. Can't make it stick though, and everybody's safely through.
VAR then up into 4th place. We're Sato then up into 4th. Trulli doing well too. Ralf Schumacher just bullying his way through then at turn 4, and that will then be 5th place. So 2 Ferraris out front then, and one stretching a lead already.
Yes, that was a great start by Ferrari. There was some question, certainly in Juan Pablo Montoya's mind, that maybe he might be able to do something off the start. Look at this, Toyota's there, that's Cristiano de Mata who's run wide, and Olivier Panis had gone through, and you can see Raikkonen, here we are on board with him now, trying to get round in 14th place, trying to get round very aggressively. Cristiano de Mata, one of the tightest corners on the circuit, and not managing to make it stick. Here comes Trulli though, resisting the attention of Jenson Button in the BAR, who appears to have lost ground at the start to Takuma Sato.
Indeed he does. Michael Schumacher leads then, he's 1.7 ahead of Montoya it says there, but in between them is Rubens Barrichello, and I have to say we've got a problem there with a Jordan smoking heavily. Is that an overfill, or is that the beginning of an engine problem? Still smoke coming out as he's heading down the straight, so maybe early signs of an engine problem there for Jordan. Michael Schumacher leads the first ever lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and Barrichello already 1.5 seconds adrift, and look at them in the background jostling for position. That's Coulthard trying to make his way past Mark Webber.
Yeah, the Jaguar obviously got a pretty good start there. Webber behind him in 10th place. Not been a great weekend so far for the Jaguar team. Webber qualified in 14th place. That is the Renault team. They're getting ready, it looks like, to receive Fernando Alonso. We saw a piece of something black flying up halfway around that first lap, and I just wonder if it's a bit of Alonso's front wing. Here it is in the, yes, you see he's lost a big chunk of his front wing, and he's come in after what was a very difficult qualifying session for him yesterday with all kinds of brake problems. And it's been a miserable weekend for Alonso, and he's already lost time, as you can see, having to come in for a very, very early pit stop. We're expecting teams to be divided between 2 and 3 stops here this afternoon as Raikkonen attacks Felipe Massa, and that'll mean the first scheduled stops around about lap 10. But as you can see, plenty of fast and furious action already down in the pit lane.
Sato gained a place off the start, Button lost one. Mark Webber must have had an almighty start. He's done well, but the second Jaguar clean has now fallen behind Kimi Raikkonen, and we're expecting Raikkonen to go much further than anybody else. They took an unusual decision yesterday not to try to attempt a qualifying lap, save the engine, save the tyres, fuel him up a little bit more heavily. They thought, as he'd got a 10th place penalty anyway through the having to have change in engine, they'd rather be 20th with a lot of fuel on board than 16th with the same fuel load as the other drivers. So keep an eye on Kimi Raikkonen. Michael Schumacher though leads comfortably from Barrichello, Montoya, Sato, Ralf Schumacher, and then Trulli. And we've now, this is Klein looking at the back, trying to have a rerun back at Kimi Raikkonen.
Yep, so 2 Jaguars battling with 2 McLarens. Webber in front of Coulthard in 9th place. Klein and Raikkonen having a right old ding-dong here, and I've been very impressed with this young man, Christian Klein. He's a very cool customer, only 21 years of age, but he said in a press conference on Friday, I'm doing a fantastic job, which is pretty self-assured stuff for a 21-year-old who's completed just 2 Grand Prix, but perhaps not fantastic. He's certainly doing a very good job. The Jaguar very impressed with him. Up, look at the inside, and that's a nice move on Kimi Raikkonen, but Raikkonen just nicks it back again.
That's the last thing Raikkonen and McLaren thought they'd be putting up with this afternoon. They thought they'd got him on a strategy that would keep him in really good shape if he just made his way through the pack. They would be very surprised to see young Klein having a rerun back at Raikkonen, as I said, and a good move, but he just went in too deep. But remember, at this stage, Raikkonen probably has virtually twice as much fuel on. Here it is. It is a good move. It's fair enough. But then he just snatches the brakes. He was carrying 20 kilometers per hour, too much speed as he got into the corner, and Kimi Raikkonen just ducked straight back underneath him again. Michael Schumacher leading by around 2.7 seconds at the last timing split. Now it's 3.3.
But he just ran over something there. Did you see something black? He just ran over it and it shot behind his car. I hope it looked like a wheel nut. I'm not 100% sure. But I hope that doesn't done any damage to his car. We have no reference lap times because this is the first time we've ever been to Bahrain to race, of course. But that 1:31.6 from Michael Schumacher on the last lap, very, very quick indeed.
Everybody getting away well. Watch at the to the left of your screen. I think it's Klein was being really rude with Fernando Alonso. Let's see if we can see where Alonso lost his front wing. I think does he reconnect in there with the Jordan? No, it must have been later on then. Alonso was towards the back of the field. You're on board with Raikkonen from the back of the grid, and this is how he made so many places early on, and he just tucks in behind what looks like at this stage that's Webber. Webber really made some moves then in the rest of that opening lap.
Certainly did. Went from 14th place up to 9th, Mark Webber. A terrific start for Jaguar, in sharp contrast to his performance in Malaysia 2 weeks ago, where the car got bogged down off the grid when he was qualified on the front row. So you can see now the gap between Michael Schumacher in first place and Juan Montoya in third, now out to 7.2 seconds. This is something Williams were frightened of, that Michael Schumacher would be able to make the break. He's now just done a 1:31.0. And throughout practice we were seeing lap times, Martin, around the 1:30 range, so dipping into the 1:29s. That is a very, very fast pace for the first 3 laps of the Grand Prix.
Incredible speed, and certainly the track not showing anything of the sandy, slippery stuff we were expecting. And this then is young Klein still thinking about having a go at Kimi Raikkonen.
Montoya third, then Sato fourth, Ralf Schumacher fifth, Trulli sixth, Button seventh, Panis eighth. Look at this though, here we go, Christian Klein having a go at Kimi Raikkonen, 2 young guns, they're alongside, Raikkonen again snatches it back on the apex of the corner. It's getting the grip out of the corner that the Jaguar has problems with, as it has really throughout the weekend. Bearing in mind he's carrying less fuel than Raikkonen, it's a nice little ding-dong.
Very, very good stuff. It's a bit like a young puppy dog chasing after a ball and just going a little bit too far, missing the ball. That's what Klein's doing at the moment, but at least he's got the confidence and the speed to have a go, even if he's getting in there way too deep.
Well, I wonder what it says about the straight line speeds of the 2 cars, because Klein seems to have him with no problems at all, doesn't he? Gets a nice slipstream down the main straight, which here in Bahrain is a full 1 kilometre long, one of the longest straights in Formula 1, as we look down there on Ralf Schumacher, who is behind Takuma Sato in 5th place.
Yes, in that slipstream, Klein was at 328 kilometres per hour. That's about 205 miles per hour, so he really is very quick in a straight line. But what I'm seeing here is a racing line that's actually pretty grippy, but as soon as you go offline, you don't seem to have much chance of slowing down as you need to. That's the problem young Klein is facing at the moment. You're on board with Ralf Schumacher then, who's steering at the back of the BAR of Sato. Will he get in the slipstream and have a run at him down into turn 1? He's trying. Is he close enough? Oh, not quite. And he really is a good job he didn't just throw caution to the wind there and send it in, because I think he'd have lost his nose.
Schumacher leads then, Barrichello second, 4.4 behind, Montoya third, Sato fourth, Ralf Schumacher fifth, sixth is Trulli in the Renault, 7th Jenson Button, disappointing for him from the start. And here's another look at what Ralf was trying to do.
Yes, he was nowhere near close enough. He just had to rely on there. Probably he was hoping he would frighten Sato into a mistake. So Sato's a bit wiser than that, although he's not done so many Grand Prix. But Ralf Schumacher then pretty much tucked up behind him. You feel he could go quite a bit faster. Michael Schumacher already coming round to lap Minardi, 1:30.6. The Ferraris are 9 seconds clear of 3rd place man Montoya. They're just running away with it. There then is the top 8 at the moment. Panis doing well up there in 8th place. Button holding station in 7th. Not been, he looked supersonic fast, didn't he, through Friday and Saturday morning. Didn't work out for him in qualifying. Hasn't worked out for him off the start line.
Well, Schumacher settling down on the pace a little bit now. He's not getting quicker lap after lap. He seems to be just measuring his pace now. 1:30.6 that last lap from him. So they are 2 Ferraris breaking away, but behind that, Montoya, Sato, Ralf Schumacher, Trulli and Button separated by just over 2 seconds from between that gap. Here we go, Klein trying to find a way past Raikkonen. This the battle down towards the back here. 15th place here at Bahrain, and once again down the main straight. There you can see Coulthard behind Webber, with Massa in the Sauber also following along, and the McLaren doesn't seem to have the straight line speed there to tackle the Jaguar. Here's Klein. This time he's not going to have a go at Raikkonen.
Panis is pitting in the Toyota, so he had a very skinny level of fuel, and that is Ralf Schumacher off the road. A mistake there, goes over the powdery stuff. It's a bit like a pastry mix, the stuff they got on the outside of the racetrack here that normally would be covered in grass at a European racetrack. I'm told they're going to replace that with concrete for next year because it really has caused a lot of dramas. It's very loose, stones coming back onto the track, and Ralf Schumacher losing a lot of time out there and still travelling slowly, James.
And places as well, he is going slow. You can see all the mess coming out of his wheels there. This stuff's obviously coated his tyres. Here's another look at what happened, Martin.
And here he goes with another run up the inside then of Sato. And this is into turn one. What's happening now? Sato says, no, you're not having that. And they touch. And it's probably damaged the left rear of Ralf Schumacher's car. Sato tried to come back at him round the outside. That was always going to end in an accident. Although Sato will feel that he really did have an equal chance to turn into that corner. And Ralf should have given him a bit more space because, look, he knows he's there. He doesn't have to look in his mirrors to see that. He's right alongside him. Ralf should have now moved right and given him some space. No point whatsoever in pinching him into that apex. And if that's damaged his left rear suspension, which surely it's given it a good old whack, then that is going to put him out of the race for at least a number of laps, if not the whole afternoon. And he seems to be just building up a bit more speed now, James.
He does indeed. Just looking at Takuma Sato's lap times, it appears that he's not been damaged by that as Ralf Schumacher dives into the pit lane. So Sato, at the moment, the car seems not to have sustained any damage to the front suspension, but Ralf Schumacher got problems. And you know, Martin, you're going back to France last year, the last time that Ralf Schumacher stood on a podium at Grand Prix. His form really does seem to have dipped, and his luck as well. Here, lovely mechanic's eye view. Ted, what can you tell us?
Yes, that's right. Patrick Head's taking a very, very close look at the rear suspension on that corner. He's given it the thumbs up. They've sent him away.
Oh, sorry, Ted, to interrupt you, but look at that. I think it's fair to say that that is possibly engine related. I know the Ilmore people back in England are pretty sensitive about us misdiagnosing an engine blow-up, but would you say that was a blow-up?
You don't know what goes in there. You don't know if it's hydraulic fluid getting into the exhaust, but it looked like one bank of the V10 engine had a pretty big failure. Yes, standing up here, no doubt about it. Ralf went out, but he wouldn't have pitted if he'd have felt the car was 100%. You'd do a lap or two. If Ralf pitted as a precaution, that was even more silly than nipping Sato into that apex. This is going to be a replay then on the overrun, under braking, so often where an engine fails, and boom, off it goes. And it's when the engine's unloaded, some white pieces coming out of the back, also through the exhaust, also suggesting the internals of that engine have been having a talk with each other.
So 3 Grand Prix in the 2004 season, and the man who finished within 2 points last year of Michael Schumacher in the World Championship and came into this title race hoping very much to be a contender, Kimi Raikkonen, has had 3 straight retirements, and if Schumacher carries on at this rate, he's going to be 30 points behind the German when we go to Imola in a few weeks' time. Hopefully we'll get some news from Ted in the pits from the McLaren team, able to confirm whether that was an engine failure. But meanwhile, look at this scrap, and Michael Schumacher there going about his serene way.
Yes, they're certainly pumping some carbon dust out of the front brakes of that Jaguar of Mark Webber. The second car of Klein now released from behind Kimi Raikkonen, and Klein was just always there, ready to have a go, wasn't he? So the Jaguars have got a lot more race pace than they showed in qualifying, no doubt about that. I see the Williams mechanics out in the pit lane again, down in front of us. So is this a Montoya first stop, or is it Ralf in for another look at his car? As I say, I'm amazed. And Ferrari in 2 then. Michael Schumacher pits from the lead and down to 100 kilometers per hour, and the men are ready for him. There it goes. So a stunning first part of the race for Michael Schumacher.
But possibly explained by how early he's coming in. You can see we've still got 48 of the 57 to go, so he's not even done 10 laps yet before making his first stop. So once again, Ferrari being very, very aggressive on a Saturday afternoon with their fuel strategy. You qualify now in Formula One with the fuel with which you do the first stint of the Grand Prix, and Ferrari very keen to get the front row of the grid. Remember last year when Michael Schumacher found himself often in the midfield, like 5th, 6th, 7th on the grid, and got into problems as a result. Into the pits also coming David Coulthard in the McLaren. He's refueling and taking tyres on.
And Webber too, they were nose to tail, so this is a mechanic race. Can he get out in front? And Coulthard has got a run on Webber, but they've released Webber. And where is Webber? There it is. It was always going to be close. Looks to me like Coulthard's going to get it if he gets off the pit lane limiter first. Surely Coulthard got out of the pit lane. Yes, he did. So mechanics just doing a better job there at McLaren, and that's an important move for David Coulthard. And we're hearing that Ralf Schumacher has done the fastest sector in the middle of anybody so far during the Grand Prix, in the middle part of the lap. So he did stop for a precautionary look. What on earth was that all about?
Well, indeed, I suppose you do have to be careful. But here's the order then at the moment. Schumacher having made that stop, he rejoins 6th behind Jenson Button. The first 5 have not stopped yet. Barrichello, Montoya, Trulli, Sato and Button, the 2 BARs, underlining really the performance they've shown at the start of this season. There you can see the rest of the runners out to the top 16. And here Juan Pablo Montoya, who will now take the lead as Rubens Barrichello in the sister Ferrari comes in 1 lap after teammate Michael Schumacher. So Montoya now leads, and the question is, how much more fuel has he got on board than Michael Schumacher? There is Montoya, that's the answer, not much more. And Barrichello's stuck.
He's not going anywhere. Looks like he's not in gear, and away he goes. There's a car coming alongside him. He just misses what I think was a Renault coming in the pits. The Renault moves into his garage. Montoya away, then he'll be much closer to Barrichello than he was before the pit stops began. 10 laps then, 10 laps complete. The leader is 11 laps into the Grand Prix. Loads of action. There's Barrichello rejoining into turn 1. Montoya does the same, and behind him the Renault of Trulli.
So we said that we expected most of the front runners to come in around about lap 9 or 10. That was looked like a pretty accurate prediction, certainly so far. That's, you can see who stopped. 2 BARs once again underlying the impressive form. They carried a bit more fuel into qualifying, but here's Webber. He's side by side with someone. There was someone just on his right as we looked on the onboard camera. We can't see who that is now, but Mark Webber was definitely side by side with somebody. And let's just see if we can try and work out who it might have been. It could have been David Coulthard. There you can see now Michael Schumacher up behind Jenson Button, and Takuma Sato as well is in front of them.
Yeah, so this is for position at this time. We'll have to wait and see when they pit. This is showing well for BAR, does clearly indicate they qualified with more fuel on board. It's about 1/3 of a second for every penalty for every 10 kilos of fuel they carry around here. That's about 3 laps worth of fuel. So BAR then look like they have a pretty solid race car, and Sato, it appeared to me, pitted. Sato pitted the first of, indeed it was, first of the BARs. He then releases Button behind him, and then Michael Schumacher, who's already made his stop, of course.
Yep, Sato was leading the Bahrain Grand Prix. He is now in the pits. Jenson Button is now leading the Grand Prix with Michael Schumacher behind him, but we'd expect Button to make a stop perhaps in the next lap or possibly a lap after that. So a very tidy start to the Grand Prix for the BAR team. Pretty frenetic for everybody else. There you can see the lead battle, and oh, how I hope we get to talk about this a bit more often through 2004 and maybe next year as well, because Jenson Button is leading the Grand Prix and he has Michael Schumacher behind him. Schumacher, of course, has made a pit stop, whereas Jenson Button has not. But nevertheless, it's a nice moment for us all to look at, and we're hoping that as BAR get more and more competitive, we'll talk about a battle for real on the racetrack where Button does not have to make an imminent pit stop.
So Button then, as you rightly say, James, leading the Grand Prix. Surely he'll pit on this lap. Normally team strategies are 1 lap apart. If they'd come up with the ideal strategy, then no point in veering it too much. And of course that's a fresh set of tyres then, and some fuel ready for Jenson Button's BAR Honda, and he will tuck into the pit lane when he exits the final corner, which is just ahead of him now. Button from Michael Schumacher, then Barrichello and Montoya are effectively next on the racetrack at the moment. Heidfelder's after Montoya. He's yet to stop too in the Jordan. He's having a good afternoon.
He certainly is. He's had a very, very impressive start to the Grand Prix as Jenson Button pits on lap 13 out of 57 here in Bahrain. It's been a good first stint for him, but he's going to be a fair chunk of time obviously behind Michael Schumacher when he rejoins. You need about 25-28 seconds to make a pit stop here. There's a problem for Button, there's a problem.
Car was up in the air. The rear jack seemed a long time coming down for some reason. Couldn't see if they were still having to check a wheel nut, but that's going to put him even further behind his teammate. but it's not going to cost him a position, it seems, James, on the track.
No, we saw Takuma Sato there swinging through the bottom of our screen, so he's still behind Sato. What it does mean, though, is without that, he would have leapfrogged Sato, undoubtedly. So that couple of seconds lost for Jenson Button with that problem in the pit stop, hopefully we'll find out exactly what it was from our pit crew, has cost Jenson a position that he could have had anyway.
This is Klein and Massa. Klein, as ever, charging up the inside and just forces Massa really to run wide, and a great move. What a hard, challenging afternoon we're seeing from young Klein. That was fair and hard, and Massa really should have seen it coming. Not too much he could do about it, though. Klein just launched it in there.
So we've had the first round of pit stops in the first ever Grand Prix in the Middle East here in Bahrain, and as things begin to settle down a little bit now, Michael Schumacher leads on lap 13 from Rubens Barrichello, Montoya, Trulli, Heidfeld, and there you can see Heidfeld and Jenson Button, I think it was, having a bit of a scrap as well. There it was Sato. There goes Jenson Button through, and Heidfeld yet to make a pit stop. He was then as high as 5th place. Fast and furious stuff here in Bahrain.
We got a message here on the computer that the incident between Ralf Schumacher and Sato, Ralf Schumacher and Sato will be investigated after the event. But Ralf then in further problems with the Renault. Michael Schumacher now 11.7 seconds clear of his teammate and 15 seconds clear of Montoya down in 3rd place. Ralf Schumacher did rejoin the racetrack, is lapping reasonably fast now, he's in traffic at the back, but is only 16th place. Heidfeld's finally pitted out of 7th, then in the Jordan. He looked like he was more than ready for a set of tyres as he was bouncing across the gravel traps, but Heidfeld then will now fall back down the field. Coulthard will be up to 7, Webber 8th, Fisichella will be 9th, followed by Panis 10th. Amazingly is actually for a position out the back here. We got Alonso 15th, just ahead of Ralf Schumacher. They're charging as hard as they can, but not particularly good lap times, as I said, from Ralf Schumacher, but they really are racing well out of the World Championship points this afternoon. We're on lap 15.
Lap 15 of a highly eventful Bahrain Grand Prix. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. Michael Schumacher is leading his teammate Rubens Barrichello by 11.8 seconds. Barrichello had also damaged his front wing and had to pit. Takuma Sato had a terrific start, made up places. Jenson Button lost a few. And we had a great scrap early on between Christian Klein in the Jaguar and Kimi Raikkonen, who started from the back of the grid with a very heavy McLaren after his problems yesterday in qualifying. They fueled it up, hoping for a long game on the strategy. It looked like it was working okay for a while, and then kaboom, looked like an engine failure from the Mercedes-Benz engine in the back for the 3rd race in a row. Raikkonen unable to complete. And look at this, a battle we've been seeing between Ralf Schumacher and Takuma Sato. That happened earlier, and we're being told now, Martin, by race direction, that will the stewards will look at that and they'll decide about it after the race. They're also going to look at an incident between Rubens Barrichello and Jarno Trulli after the race. That's something new for Formula One this year.
Yes, it is. There's a penalty system in place, and they can also, ultimately, if they want, dock them 10 places on the grid at the next Grand Prix. I don't really know what the Barrichello and Trulli incident was as such. I don't think we've really seen that, unless you can correct me on that, James. But quite clearly, we saw Ralf Schumacher and Takuma Sato getting together. Schumacher stopped for a precautionary look at his rear suspension, carried on, and is now down in 15th place following Alonso, who's 14th, who's also been in for a new nose cone. But Ted has got some news for us down in the pits.
At McLaren, Martin, I asked Norbert Haug, I said, can you confirm that that was an engine failure? He said, well, you know, we won't know until we get it back. Now, I mean, it is fair enough, I suppose you can say this, but I can tell you, when it actually happened, he and Professor Hubert of Mercedes-Benz shrugged shoulders.
Sorry to interrupt you, I'm sure they did shrug their shoulders, but Christian Klein will have the Jaguar management shrugging their shoulders. A very, very lurid spin there, was running in 12th place in the Jaguar, and look at that, as he drove back on the track, that's an illustration of those fine particles of dust that we've been talking about. When that stuff sits off the racing line, very tricky. Here we are, Martin.
Yes, he's gone in and he's put too much of his tyre on the curb on the way in and then braked heavily. You got much less coefficient of grip out there on the painted surface, of course. And round he goes, but he did recover. Ted, do you want to finish that story?
Yeah, no, I was just going to update you about BAR and Jenson Button's problem in that pit stop. Lou went into BAR and they said it was a problem with the release mechanism on the rear jack.
Okay, yes, that is how it looked, isn't it? There's a long time coming down, but Button remains in 6th place then, just 9/10 of a second behind his teammate, who he can see, and as can we, right in front of him there. BAR's going well in 5th and 6th. Michael Schumacher now leads by 12 seconds over Barrichello, and he's 17.5 seconds ahead of Montoya. I mean, it's just too easy, isn't it? They're lapping a second a lap faster than anybody else too. But good fights going on down the field. Coulthard 7th and Webber still within sight of him in 8th. Some good action, a long way to go yet.
Riding on board with Sato. Somebody went onto the dirt there in front of us. Who was that? Oh, there's Jenson Button. Sato's made a mistake, unsighted by somebody in front of him, and I think we've cut away from it. Just an unfortunate moment, because it looked to me like Jenson Button was going to get past Takuma Sato, who definitely lost momentum there. We were riding on board with him and we saw some dust in front of us. There we can look at the two Jordans now. They are circulating in 16th and 17th places.
I've just looked out of the window, James, as you were explaining that, and Button is ahead. Button came off the corner with a lot more speed, and it's showing me here on the computer that Button is ahead of Sato, and it's the way it looks to me, as I'm sure he got... which one of those two is in front? It's Button in front.
It's Button in front, but look at the front wing of Sato. Look at that. It's all buckled and bent. Clearly he ran a bit wide up over that curve, and he's damaged the front of that car. So a very promising run from Takuma Sato comes to naught. Here it is.
Yeah, he's going to go. There's a horrible secondary curve. He's lost a lot of structure in his front wing. He'll get a huge amount of understeer. The front sliding across the racetrack. Surely he'll lose too much time. He'll have to come in. And what is that? That's what unsighted him. The car was running wide before the corner. Unsighted him just... no, that is Sato himself running wide earlier on onto the pit straight. That was the incident itself, as Sato then damages his front wing. Will now have to pit. Otherwise, he could well get black flagged with that.
Yeah, I think what happened was, as we cut to an onboard shot of Jenson Button as that moment happened, that explains the sequence of events. Look at the sparks coming off from the underneath of this car. Sato very, very keen to get back to the pits as quickly as he possibly can. He's still running in 6th place at the moment, because that was the sort of margin he had over David Coulthard behind him, who was going to inherit 6th place when he pits. This is Fernando Alonso, and that's Felipe Massa in the Sauber in front of us, and this is the battle for 12th.
Yes, a recovering Alonso had to pit for a new nose cone, and Massa holding down 12th, Alonso up to 13th, Ralf Schumacher 14th, just behind them. Sato pits for a new nose and front wing, as expected. He could not carry on with that, so Sato then was 5th, will now fall down the field. There it goes.
Amazing how fast they can change the nose of a Formula One car, and Sato goes out again.
The problem with that is, James, it's not really a pit stop window for him. He's on a 3-stopper this afternoon, but that's going to compromise him. They'll have to fill it a little bit. But, you know, at least sometimes if you're within the window, you can make that stop that you would have to have made anyway within a few laps and not take too much pain for it. But I don't think that was the case for Takuma Sato. There then is the fight between Massa, Alonso and Ralf Schumacher. Alonso with a good run at him, but nowhere to go as they run into the tight chicanes of turns 6 and 7.
You can see there Sato rejoined in 14th behind Ralf Schumacher, now up to 13th place after that earlier incident, the clash with Sato himself. We might get another one in a minute. Here's Alonso and Massa making himself very wide in the racetrack, not really giving Alonso an opportunity to get past him.
A good run on him in the slipstream. He's better under braking. Surely Alonso can make that one work. It's too dirty on the inside. He didn't, and Massa's driving very defensively, slowing the lot of them down, and Ralf Schumacher surely is steering right at the back of Alonso now, but we're looking at the back of Massa. He can stay with him through the final turn at the bottom of this hill. He's got a great chance of a slipstream down the pit straight. The layout is so conducive to overtaking. Now this is crucial. Massa goes in early. That tends to be his driving style, and it was a bit defensive on top. But it's quite a toe that Alonso's going to need if it's going to pay off for him. Over the start-finish line they go, 1.1 kilometres, and he's getting the merest slipstream really, and he's going to take a lunge up the inside at Ralf, thinking about following him. None of it working.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning that this is a track which very much rewards a nice powerful engine, and in the back of that Sauber is the current Ferrari engine. It's the same as the one Michael Schumacher has under his bonnet as well. It's the new specification for 2004, built to last a whole Grand Prix weekend engine. The Renault is 20 horsepower better off than it was last year. It too is a completely new design, but they're still giving away a lot of power to Ferrari, and certainly Sauber putting that engine to good advantage. And you can see behind Alonso is Ralf Schumacher. He's got the BMW, widely regarded as being one of the most powerful. So clearly there's 3 cars here. All of them want to be moving around a little bit, and lots more action to come from this little scrap, I fancy.
Trouble is Alonso's getting more understeer as he goes through the corner in the slipstream. This time he's a little bit closer up the inside, but it's a tighter angle, but he's made it work this time around. He'd been having a few half goes at getting through. Ralf Schumacher follows him through, as so often happens, and Alonso stopped having the little half goes and set the car up beautifully for a proper attempt.
And it looked to me, Martin, as though as he realised he wasn't going to get through there, Massa just had to get out of it. He lost so much momentum as a result, it allowed Ralf to come through.
No doubt about it. So they're up then to 11 and 12. Here we go again. Alonso came out of turn 10 very neat and tidy, had better acceleration, used the slipstream well, took the racing line on the way in, made sure he didn't lock his brakes on the sandy area, and Massa completely on his back foot.
2 Brits in the point at the moment. Jenson Button in 5th place, David Coulthard in 6th. Michael Schumacher then leading the Grand Prix on lap 21. You can see all of the current top 8 in the points have made one stop already. Word for Fisichella as well, up into 8th place for Sauber. We've been watching his teammate Massa there having a battle with Alonso. That was a battle for 11th, 12th and 13th. But as I say, the Brits, David Coulthard 5th. Sorry, Jenson Button 5th, David Coulthard in 6th.
And Button's flying. He made a mistake somewhere, but Button is starting to home in on Jarno Trulli in 4th place. There is the battle I'm talking about. Jenson Button absolutely flying. Another 2/10 out of him that time around. So Button now up and running. Sato's out of his way.
Yeah, but the bad news for them is that Michael Schumacher is lapping in the high 1-minute 30s, and very much quicker today Ferrari than anybody else. There's Heidfeld running a bit wide. Let's have a look at this dust. You can see how it gets lifted up onto the track. It's been happening like that all weekend, and it really is very slippery stuff.
Heidfeld was running. He made a mistake earlier on. We saw him on the powdery stuff. Dropped behind Pantano and remains behind him. So Heidfeld was going so well. Now down in 16th. Klein is back in 17th. He's been having a number of adventures through the day, but still excited us with some of his overtaking efforts.
As indeed. Michael Schumacher then almost 14 seconds clear of his teammate Rubens Barrichello, lapping about half a second a lap faster than Barrichello at the moment. Not really sure whether there is any problem for Barrichello or whether Michael really is just pushing that hard. One of the interesting things, Martin, that's going on at the moment is that Juan Pablo Montoya, we hardly seen him in this race, but he is in for a podium position once again. He's currently in 3rd place, lapping slower than the Renaults and the BARs behind him. We've got Trulli 4th, Button 5th, and Coulthard and McLaren in 6th place. But Montoya's lap times have been a little bit slower than the Renaults. I wonder whether he's perhaps put quite a bit of fuel in that car when he made that pit stop.
We'll have to wait and see, but as you say, the times are very much up and down. I mean, Button's now gone the fastest on the last lap around. comfortably. So they're obviously finding slightly variable grip out there. It's a technical racetrack, and it's very easy to make a mistake. Michael Schumacher's lead now 14 seconds, and he's 22 seconds clear of Montoya in third place.
Yes, indeed he is. Mark Webber, after a disappointing weekend of practice, the Jaguars really didn't seem to be anywhere yesterday in qualifying. Webber was 14th on the grid, and his teammate was 12th. He's managed to get himself up into 7th place now. We don't seen him much today, but Webber going quite strongly, but certainly not on the same sort of pace as the cars in front. The McLaren starting to enjoy itself a little bit. David Coulthard can't match the pace of the BAR or the Renault in front of him. Coulthard in 6th, but starting to look a little bit better for McLaren. Kimi Raikkonen, we've seen, he's the only retirement so far in the Grand Prix, and we're looking at this scrap here between Felipe Massa and Takuma Sato. It's a battle for 11th and 12th places, and you can see that Sato really has closed in on the back of Massa. Massa the victim then of an overtaking move just a few laps ago by Fernando Alonso and Ralf Schumacher, and now Sato wants to do exactly the same thing to him.
Still on the move then is Jenson Button as Coulthard pits for his second scheduled stop at the end of lap 23. David Coulthard in the pits then. Last time around it got him ahead of Webber. Webber was now 6.2 down. Webber pitting also on the same lap. Coulthard away nicely. He will retain that position ahead of the Jaguar. Coulthard 6th then. Webber yet to leave the pits in 7th. And away he goes now, so Webber away.
Second pit stop of the afternoon for race leader Michael Schumacher, 8.1 seconds. This is lap 25 of 57, so approaching half distance, and that pretty much confirms he's going to make a third stop here this afternoon. One of the reasons for that, Martin, is that all the teams really were concerned about brake wear, weren't they? And obviously the less fuel you carry, the better. Look at this though, as he comes out of the pits, he comes to alongside Jarno Trulli, and Trulli very generously lets him through, but that was a scrap for position because Trulli has only made one stop, Michael Schumacher 2, and Trulli really got out of his way there, didn't he?
Yeah, but there was no point in tripping over him, was there, really? I mean, he's not racing Michael this afternoon, and Michael, I think Trulli was smart enough to avoid what happened between Sato and Ralf Schumacher, because Michael had, and it was earlier on the throttle, had a better run out of the corner. Ralf Schumacher also pits then. We've seen David Coulthard pit, make his second stop, as has Webber. So we're in the zone now for the second stop of most of the three stoppers. And
Trulli will be mindful of the fact that the incident involving himself and Rubens Barrichello is under investigation. Here comes Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, and Ralf Schumacher has knocked over a couple of his mechanics. They're picking themselves up, Ted.
Yes, he just went too soon. Carl Gaydon, the chief mechanic, did not release him. Maybe there was a problem with the clutch slipping or something like that with the transmission, but Ralf went too soon. He sort of knocked over his fuel man. They fell to the ground. They're okay though. The usual fuel man's gone back into the garage. Montoya's coming in next. Actually no, he's rock hard, this fuel man. He's got up, he's okay. He will service Montoya next.
Yeah, just looking out of the window, everybody seems to be okay. I think they've swapped the primary fuel man and they have got a backup one, so we'll see when Montoya makes his stop. We'll have a look. Everybody else looks to be okay down in the Williams garages. Into the pits comes Jarno Trulli from what was 5th place for him in the Renault.
Alonso absolutely flying out on the racetrack. Meanwhile, in the sister Renault, as he does a recovery drive back from having a damaged nose cone earlier in the race. Alonso out on track, going faster than just about anybody at the moment, as his teammate Trulli rejoins the racetrack after his second stop. Barrichello's yet to stop. There is Trulli. Montoya's yet to stop for the second time. Michael Schumacher has. Button still travelling very quickly up into 4th place now, and he too has got to make his second stop quite soon. But the BARs were the later stoppers in the first round, weren't they? BAR clearly filled up a little bit better on the grid.
Yes, they were. Mark Webber we saw just going off the last corner there into the dust. He is having a scrap this afternoon with, well, he was having a scrap with David Coulthard, but he's lost a lot of ground by going off the track. Here's Rubens Barrichello. Ferrari ready in the pit lane, I think, to receive him, and Williams also ready to receive Juan Montoya. Barrichello looks like he's going through to is that Barrichello? It's Michael Schumacher. No, it's Barrichello, so he goes through to complete another lap. Ferrari are standing by waiting for him to come in.
Barrichello electing to take another lap. Was that an error or was that intentional? I would think they would give him that nod to go around one more time. Montoya pits then. He was second behind Barrichello. They've leapfrogged Michael Schumacher because Schumacher's already stopped, of course, and we've got Button in the pit too. So Button had been gently catching Montoya and Trulli. So an important stage of the Grand Prix for Jenson Button. Let's hope that rear jack is not a problem this time around. And away he goes, please. And it still seemed a bit slow out there, didn't it? But Button away then. He's got a great chance of mixing it, I think, with Montoya and Trulli this afternoon.
And there is Jarno Trulli going through the frame, you can see. So he's not been able to leapfrog him in the pit stops. As you said, Martin, he was lapping very, very quickly coming up to that stop. He was probably hopeful that he might be able to do it. And once again, Jenson Button, having done the hard work on the racetrack, found that a slowish pit stops prevented him from making up a place, because he would have had Sato at his first round of stops, and he probably...
He's been very much cruising up behind them, so he's got a great chance this afternoon if Jenson Button can carry on that pace. We've just seen Fisichella and Alonso pit together. They were fighting over 6th and 7th. And we'll just have to let the computer sort itself out now as Barrichello comes in from the lead. This time he does come in to a garage of red overalled men, 22 of them working away, refueling, cleaning the radiators, changing the tyres. That looks very fast, doesn't it? And away he goes. No problems this time for Rubens Barrichello, cleanly away.
It's a bit of a cliche to say it's like clockwork, but really the rhythm, the movement of the mechanics is something to behold. It's like a sort of a ballet in fireproof overalls, really. It's all coordinated. They practice it over and over and over again as he comes out there behind Giorgio Pantano, running in 17th place in the Jordan, so he won't present too much of a problem for Barrichello. But certainly it's a very, very well drilled outfit, your pit crew of every team. They practice on Thursday afternoons, they practice again on Sunday mornings using the spare car, and they do it hundreds and hundreds of times, so they could almost do it in their sleep.
Barrichello then comfortably in second place, and everybody then has stopped twice with the exception of Heidfeld, who's I think probably the only driver out there this afternoon. James on a 2-stopper. Heidfeld in the Jordan down in 15th at the moment, so we can settle down. And you almost don't know where to look around here. Action everywhere, out of the window, on the TV, just thick with it. Really great stuff. We're on lap 28.
Yeah, halfway stage then in the 57 lap Bahrain Grand Prix. Well, Herman Tilke, who designed this racetrack, also responsible for Sepang in Malaysia, he said he wanted to build a track that would challenge the drivers. It wouldn't give them much margin for error, certainly in terms of driving fast laps, but it would also encourage overtaking. And certainly from what we've seen with Klein and Ralf Schumacher, Alonso, even a lot of overtaking here this afternoon, hasn't there?
And as you're saying that, Ralf Schumacher's just overtaken De Matta, so that's for 12th place. Ralf then gradually making his way back. I think after his spin, I think he was convinced the rear suspension was broken. He'd been off the road and got a lot of dirt on the tyre. Car was probably sliding around a lot. What are we going to watch here? And is this where Ralf got through? De Matta out braking himself into one. Does Ralf flash past us? No, he doesn't, but he obviously had a run at him just after it.
You mentioned yesterday, Martin, in qualifying that Cristiano De Matta's position...
Gossip was that Zonta was shaping up for his drive, and I expressed rather a lot of surprise at that. I didn't think it to be correct, but reporting was echoing around the paddock, which is pretty hot gossip in most corners.
Look at this scrap down the main straight. Mark Webber in 8th. Fernando Alonso, who after a pretty disappointing time in practice, where he had a puncture on Friday and lost a lot of track time, quite spectacular front puncture actually for Alonso. And look at this, he's much quicker than the Jaguar. Webber tries to go defensive. Alonso looks of going around the outside, but the speed differential here is quite considerable. Can Alonso get alongside now? He's having a real go through the zigzag. And as I say, offline here is very slippery, so Alonso doesn't want to take too many chances, but clearly he's a lot quicker than the Jaguar at the moment.
Yeah, he's still having those half attempts though, and then losing 20 metres on the way out of the corner. Oh, Webber off the gas. What was that all about? That's halfway down the straight. So a little test there. Was it a misshift or was it Mark playing some games? Alonso has got half a chance of a slipstream there. Jaguar, we know, is fast in a straight line, so he's got a strange. Then Webber very late on the brakes. Alonso understeering wide. Look at the acceleration difference as Webber disappears over the hill. Some pretty thing going on.
Non-driver of one of these cars that really always surprises me is how quickly the car in front pulls away out of a slow corner. You know, you nail the gas, it just goes, while the other guy's going slowly through the corner, and then of course as he builds up speed it concertinas again. Very disconcerting for us to watch it like that. What's it like for a driver?
Well, it is disconcerting because you can so easily run into him, Franklin, and lose your nose. Your sensors are hyper, and concertina effect, and Alonso then nowhere near close enough to have a go down into turn 1, so didn't even bother with one of those little feigns that he's been doing. But this is for 8. But Alonso's pace, they're now losing 3 seconds a lap as they're fighting each other. Alonso's gone from 31.
This is where he gave him a little pause, didn't he?
This is better, he's closer. Now he's got in that sweet. That is naughty, and Alonso says you should not do that. And he's right to say that. But can he nail him up the inside? It's a right-hander coming up. Surely Webber has got the space he needs. And I think Mark, we saw some frustration from him in Malaysia at the last Grand Prix, pushing people around off the start line. I think he's just being a touch naughty there.
Well, it's very interesting. Couple of things there we want to talk about afterwards. One of them where he appeared to slow. Was it a brake test, or did he have some kind of problem, Mark Webber? But certainly that was one thing. And I think Alonso will definitely want to have a word with him there about that change of direction. The rule, as I understand it, Martin, is you can move across once to block and that's it. And Alonso, you saw his hand coming off the wheel. This is great stuff here. Pictures coming from FOM TV. And once again, bringing us very close to the action here in Bahrain. And this track providing action. Look at this, though. Alonso, has he got through? I think he has. We didn't quite see it, but Mark Webber obviously made some sort of mistake into turn 1, and Alonso has finally got past him.
Yes, I think Mark did only move once that time, James. It's when he moves the problem. It was too late. Alonso had committed. He'd started the move up alongside. You can't, if you can go into a defensive position, but you've got to do that before the other driver's coming up alongside you. Now Alonso can get back on it. He's got a chance to catch Sato, who's just 12 seconds, and there is the earlier action. As I said, he moved the once and stayed on the inside, but it was too late to do that. Alonso probably should have spent more time thinking about the corner than putting his hand up, because you can't see that as the driver. You can't look in the mirror and see somebody making hand signals. And there's the mistake. Webber outbrakes himself in turn 1 and oh so nearly loses his nose on the rear wheel of the Renault. Here we're going to see another angle. Watch him just swipe across, and in fact it doesn't look quite so close from that angle. Alonso through. Now he can charge after Sato. That's a dozen seconds down the road, and Sato is pushing Coulthard, just a second between them. So Coulthard, here we go. Coulthard's going to come under pressure from Sato and Alonso in the near future.
Bear in mind that Fernando Alonso started 17th on the grid here this afternoon. Sato's got some damage to his rear wing. You can see the wicker bill there, just above the H of Honda, is sticking up a little bit. That won't affect his aerodynamic performance too much, but it's obviously it's just a little thing to keep an eye out for. Obviously, it's just a little element that sticks onto the top of the rear wing. It's called a gurney flap, and it just adds a little bit of extra downforce. It won't hurt him too much. But that battle we saw there between Alonso and Webber, that was for the last of the points-paying positions. Alonso now has it in 8th place, and Jaguar yet to get on the board this year. No points scored, and they had that long run last season of points scoring. They got a taste for it, they got used to it, and I think they're quite frustrated at the moment that what is a very quick car, this new R5 Jaguar, they have improved it an awful lot, but last Grand Prix, qualified on the front row, couldn't make it stick, couldn't get a point. Here this weekend, a tough weekend for Jaguar, couldn't make it stick, and he's now lost the points position. Here, though, is Fisichella, and a little gentle spin there. Contact with Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, Ralf really is in the wars. I don't know if he'll come in and have the front suspension checked now. Coulthard's slow at this stage of the Grand Prix, doesn't have any pace. He's doing 1:33s. He needs to be doing 1:31. So what's that all about? We don't know if he's got a problem. We don't know if maybe he doesn't like this set of tyres, despite having a little bit of an aerodynamic deficiency on the rear wing. Sato still got plenty of straight line speed. There's not enough space for two of them in there. Coulthard's got the line for the left-hander, but Sato nails it around the outside.
Great move by Takuma Sato. He gave every indication that he wasn't going to have a go into that corner, but then at the very, very last minute, he went for it, and he made it stick. They were side by side, weren't they, through there? And I guess that's what that corner sequence is designed for, isn't it? If you go around the inside, the guy on the outside can keep his foot in it, and they can go side by side. It's proof that it works.
Yeah, the switch back, it does work well. Sato was lucky that Coulthard gave him the breathing space through there. Coulthard tried to squeeze him into the apex. They both just left him enough room. And, well, we've seen a lot of contact here already. But Sato, unlike Ralf Schumacher, did go wider and give enough space so there was no contact.
So, cracking Grand Prix in terms of race action, no doubt about it. Battles all the way through the field, except the one that perhaps ultimately matters, which is at the very front. Michael Schumacher has got this race bought and paid for at the moment as we enter certainly deep into the second half of the Grand Prix. He's 11.3 seconds clear of teammate Rubens Barrichello, who himself is 11 seconds ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya, who is really Schumacher's principal rival for the championship this year at the moment. He's in 3rd place. Trulli is just over 3 seconds, though, behind Montoya and lapping about 0.4 of a second faster than the BMW Williams driver. And then just 3.5 seconds behind Trulli is Jenson Button, who's on the similar sort of pace. So not catching Trulli at the moment, but Button possibly regrouping just in this middle phase of the Grand Prix. I know that the BAR team are very, very confident about their car. They believe the brakes are strong. Everything's good on this car. They will be pushing hard to the finish.
19 runners then, we're on lap 34, only one retirement, Kimi Raikkonen, yet to finish a Grand Prix this year, therefore of course yet to score a World Championship point, and man, many had penciled in as a potential World Champion, including no less than Bernie Ecclestone, but he's absolutely nowhere. As we move into the European season, he'll go in with 0 points to Imola, but Michael Schumacher, who's now backed his pace off quite a lot, well, by a few tenths at least. He's certainly not pushing as hard as he needs to or wants to necessarily, or could do, I should say. Barrichello still a dozen seconds behind him.
I agree with you, Martin, but there's quite a few people who'd love to be able to do laps in the 1:31.1s, wouldn't
Absolutely.
there? He's still going mighty quick, but he has been going a second faster than that at several stages of this Grand Prix as we ride on board with Rubens Barrichello in 2nd place, and you can't see Michael Schumacher. He's far ahead. Bit of a metaphor really for the relative positions of these two drivers within this team. Schumacher, whatever happens, just always seems to be ahead. Except Suzuka last year, where Barrichello got his win, didn't he, on the day when Ferrari really needed him to come through. Michael having a scrappy day for once, but this is a Jordan in front of us, one of the back markers. Both Jordans still in the field, Heidfeld 15th and Pantano in 17th. Only one retirement still, and we're in the second half of the Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen earlier on. And Schumacher 12 seconds clear of Barrichello, Montoya 11 behind, Trulli, Button, Sato the top 6 at the moment. There is Montoya, there is Trulli, and there is Button.
Yes. 6.8 seconds separating those three, and Ted has some news for us.
Just been into Williams, Martin. Ralf Schumacher's radioed in. He says he does think that he did hit Fisichella in that incident. He thinks the front wing is okay. They've since checked it out on the telemetry data, and they also think the front wing is intact, but they will be having a close look at that front wing and the front suspension in his next pit stop.
Well, it's certainly shaking about down there. I don't know if it always does that, but Ralf then lining up Panis. They're fighting over 10th place. They can tell on the telemetry back in the pits. They know the loads going through the suspension, and that is of course directly generated by the downforce of the front and rear wings and general underbodies, so they can tell that it seems to be doing the right thing. Whether it will hang on for the entire distance is another matter. Ralf then still lining himself up. He's between the two Toyotas at the moment, although D'Amata is a few seconds behind him.
Yeah, Ralf here lining up Panis to pass him. He's also, if you believe the stories in the paddock, lining up Panis' seat for next year. There's a lot of talk that Ralf Schumacher is in deep discussion with the Toyota team about going there next year. Some huge numbers have been bandied around, up to 12 or 14 million pounds a year they're talking about. But Martin, on the evidence of this Grand Prix in Malaysia 2 weeks ago and the fact that he hasn't been on the podium since France, do you think Ralf is really worth that kind of money? Where do you see him at the moment in the greater scheme of things as drivers?
I think we always say with Ralf, sometimes he's exceptional and more often than not he's nowhere to be seen, and he's clearly got the speed and the skill. Maybe a change of environment would suit him. I don't know him well enough to be frank, but he's certainly doing a good job of annoying Frank Williams. That is clear to see, and it does seem to be big numbers that's his highest priority at the moment. He'll hate me for saying that, but you know, it's got to be said.
Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's no doubt, as Montoya said going into this season, that when he first started at the Williams team, he had the measure. Ralf Schumacher had the measure of Montoya. It took Montoya some time to close up to him, but now, quite comfortably, he has the measure of Ralf Schumacher. So it's very interesting. Quite possibly both Williams drivers then leaving the team at the end of this season. I think certainly it'll be interesting to hear Ralph's explanation of his performance here this afternoon in Bahrain. But look at this, he can't seem to get on terms with Panis at the moment.
No, he'll have to wait for a mistake by the looks of it, but we've got some great scraps brewing up out there. Trulli and Button are relentlessly, but only by 2 or 3 tenths per lap, catching third place man Montoya. There's now 5.3 between the three of them, and Alonso is cruising up behind Coulthard too. So some good scraps coming up.
Yeah, plenty to look forward to here then in the closing stages of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Quite a long way to go, still 21 laps. Schumacher leading by 12.5 from Barrichello. Montoya beginning to come under pressure now from Trulli and Button. Sato 20 seconds behind his teammate, and David Coulthard 7th, and 8th Fernando Alonso closing in on the Scotsman.
Michael Schumacher's lead just edging out, 12.9 seconds now. You don't feel that he's in any hurry or any particular pressure, despite, as James says, some pretty stellar lap times. Montoya is more looking back now than forward. He's 24 seconds behind the leading Ferrari, but now just 5 seconds ahead of Trulli and Button combined. Sato lapping quickly now. He's past Coulthard with a very strong 6th place and matching his teammate Button's pace, but Sato pits then. Sato pits at the end of lap 37 from 6th place. That'll release Coulthard and the fast closing Alonso, but they've all got to come in. He's the first on the 3-stopper then, so Sato a little bit out of sync with the rest of the field.
Yep. BAR just pulling away there. Quite nice stops we've seen today from them. Jenson Button's first stop a little bit spoiled by a rear jack failing to release, but generally speaking, the BAR team stepping up now to the plate, trying to make themselves one of the top teams in Formula One. Ralf Schumacher swinging through, and here we have Michael Schumacher.
When he went wide across the curb in the final turn, so that's put Sato a little bit out of synchronization as Panis rejoins the race. He was in the 11th before the stop.
Lap 39 of the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first ever Grand Prix in the desert. It's certainly going to be one we're going to remember for quite a long time. The two Ferraris are quite comfortable at the front, but really all the other positions are up for grabs here this afternoon, including Juan Montoya's third place. Jenson Button in fourth for BAR is looking very, very strong at the moment. He took 7/10 of a second out of the Colombian on the last lap. This is Jarno Trulli, who's just made his third and final pit stop of the afternoon. The Renaults and the Williams both tending to pit earlier than the BAR of Jenson Button, who's slightly out of sequence with them. He's running a...
Yes, I think he's got a chance of that anyway. Look, he's now easily within the mirrors of Montoya, but for me what's more crucial is how quick is Trulli on his outlap. How long can Jenson stay out there? Can he do 1 or 2 laps more as the Williams then of Montoya pits? Jenson Button goes through. Let's hope he's got at least 2 more laps. Then he's got a chance of leapfrogging the pair of them. Certainly, truly, Montoya would be... I think he'd need Montoya to have a very slow stop or a slow outlap to leapfrog him this time, but he's got enough pace to beat him anyway, I think. Montoya away with a solid stop then.
Nice point of view there of the front jack man. You can see the man who puts the jack under the nose of the car and lifts it up. Nice camera there down in the pit lane, giving you a feel for what it's like. Incredible heat as a car comes at you at 65 miles an hour to come to a standstill in the pit lane, on a dusty pit lane as well. They're brave guys, those front jack men. There is Trulli, so Montoya safely in front of him. But these are the critical laps now for Jenson Button. He'll podium in Malaysia 2 weeks ago. How emotional was that for him? Can he get another one here? He's got to push in these next few laps.
And I've noticed that Trulli's lost a bit of time lapping the Jordans. 1 to go still, as you can clearly see, which leaps out of the way. Pantano getting out of the way there, and Trulli has, as you say, got to push as hard as he knows how, because Button has a great chance of... Button's done a 1:31.0. That's a good lap time. That's matching the leading Ferraris. And Alonso flying too. He surely is going to clear David Coulthard pretty soon too. We're in the zone of the third stops of the afternoon, and Jenson Button needs some of the best laps of the afternoon too to really make... Does he go in the pit lane? Yes, he does, unfortunately. Surely that's not enough to get him past Montoya. Will it get him past Trulli?
Well, it's going to be very, very close. We think it was about 15 seconds that Jenson Button had over Juan Montoya, and you need over 20 really to retain a place. Needs to be a good stop here then by the BAR team. And so far, so good. Tense moments for all these mechanics. They're playing in the big league now. Here he comes. Montoya goes past us. He has retained his third place. There he is. As you can see, going through your screens now, so Button didn't have enough laps in his pocket.
Yeah, but yes, he did. He was never going to clear Montoya, but look, he has got ahead of Jarno Trulli. So that is a good run then for Jenson Button. It did work out for him. Now he can hunt down the Williams of Montoya. Great stuff. He's up into an effective 4th place.
Good stuff indeed by the BAR team. And pretty much everybody now then. Alonso coming in for his third pit stop of the afternoon. All the people that are going to make 3 stops, I think, have more or less made them. Possibly Felipe Massa, who's currently running in 11th place. And who's that? This is the Ferrari of Rubens Barrichello. He's the last then to come in. It's Michael Schumacher for his 4th stop of the afternoon, is that? No, he's third. Beg your pardon.
They've already clocked him up with the 3 on the computer here. So Schumacher then had a 10.9 second lead as he ducked into the pit lane, holding station really. They're not under pressure. They're now... Oh, look at this traffic jam down in the first corner as Barrichello takes the lead, but he's got to stop again yet, and he's in a lot of traffic that'll cost him dearly. Michael Schumacher comes out to a relatively clear track.
Yep, not too many problems filtering back into the traffic for Michael Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello then leading the Grand Prix. He has yet to make another stop. But the two Ferraris pretty comfortable today. Certainly going into yesterday's qualifying, Martin, it looked like Ferrari didn't have all that much speed, but in the practice session yesterday morning, Jenson Button set the fastest lap we've seen so far of this track, 1:29.5, and today, again, no one has matched that. But going into qualifying, Ferrari didn't seem to have the pace, but suddenly, they certainly have it now.
They do. Nobody was more surprised than Ferrari themselves to be on the front row of the grid. They've easily had the pace, haven't they, this afternoon? The track, some 20 degrees cooler than qualifying, and it just seems to have played even further into the hands. We saw in early practice on Friday a slipperier track, as we surely had with the sand blowing around. The Ferraris were just mighty until the track rubbered in and gripped up. When it really came to the Michelin runners, we're not going to see that this afternoon in these conditions.
No, it is cooler today, and that's making the difference for Ferrari, very much as it did in Melbourne, the first Grand Prix of the season. A chilly day in Melbourne played right into the hands of the Ferrari team, and even race day in Malaysia was a little cooler than the other days of the weekend, and that played into Ferrari's hands as well. Once again, they've been favoured by the weather on race day.
Yes, unfortunately, in the stops for Button, he's ended up 5 seconds behind Montoya. Montoya's been quicker in, through and out somehow than Jensen managed to be, but let's wait and see where it settles down and see. Jensen was taking a full half-second a lap out of him, wasn't he, just before the stops? If he's still got a similar pace advantage, he'll be up behind Montoya in around 10 laps time before the end of the Grand Prix.
I'm just looking at the side pods, Martin, of this Ferrari, of Rubens Barrichello. Look how dirty they are. Obviously, a lot of brake dust has been coming off the front brakes of this car. Obviously, both of them were concerned with brake wear, weren't they? Michael Schumacher changing materials yesterday morning, one company to another, not really happy with the change, making the change back again. And Ross Brawn telling us going into this Grand Prix he was a little bit concerned about the brakes. And look at the amount of dirt that's picked up on the side pods there.
Yeah, I think it's turning out to be one of the hardest braking circuits anywhere in the world. Not quite as hard as Monza, I'm told. And Montreal's pretty tough too on brakes, but it's clearly been a feature. And what's helped that again is the ambient temperatures being lower. Barrichello then ducks into the pit lane for his third and scheduled stop, and Michael Schumacher will of course retake the lead. This is looking very comfortable for the Italian team.
Yeah, Barrichello stopping, nice overhead shot there as he goes out, 6.9, nice smooth stop. A very brave Renault mechanic just crossing the pit lane, and the two Ferraris comfortably ahead of Juan Montoya, who Jenson Button is beginning once again now slowly to reel in. He took a couple of tenths out of him on that last lap. He's still got another 14 laps to mount an attack on the Williams to try and get that final podium position.
In the stops, Coulthard has fallen behind Alonso. I don't know if Alonso, of course we've seen Alonso stop for a new nose cone early on in the Grand Prix, if he's got to stop again yet. But Coulthard now behind Alonso, really pressurising Sato already. So that wasn't a direct overtake on the racetrack. It's done during the pit stops. Coulthard at the moment out of the World Championship points. Raikkonen out of the Grand Prix. No points right at this time for McLaren at all. They've only got 4 so far this season.
Lap 44 then out of 57. Michael Schumacher, saw him have to make a pit stop when a damaged front wing. Alonso is 8th, 9th is David Coulthard, 10th Giancarlo Fisichella, who was at one stage in the Sauber in the points, but he's dropped out. Also in the points at one stage was Mark Webber in the Jaguar. He's dropped down to 11th place. We saw a tremendous scrap between him and Fernando Alonso earlier on. That'll be talked about for a while to come. Panis is down in 12th ahead of teammate D'Amata. As we ride on board with Alonso, very busy day for him, a lot of overtaking to be done, coming through from 17th on the grid at the start. And Sato, having lost that time making the pit stop for a new nose, is now falling into the clutches of Alonso. This is the last of the points-paying positions, 7th and 8th.
Yes, Alonso was 16th on the grid, now up to P8. Don't think he's got to stop again for any reason. For a scheduled stop, and clearly he's got a great chance of relieving Sato of that 7th place. What is currently 7th, surely Ralf Schumacher has got to stop again. He's up in 6th at the moment after his dramatic afternoon. So Alonso has had stunning pace coming through the field, all sorts of action, drama, tripping over people, gesticulating to them, but whatever it is, it's put him up there with a chance to score some points. Both Renaults in the points then.
But not challenging really the front runners as they were hoping to do in the early stage of this season. It's, they said yesterday, it's not really a sort of Renault track. It's one that you do require a good, powerful engine. They're still building on the engine side. They've recruited Rob White from Cosworth to be the head of the engine division now. He's moved over to Paris. He's working hard, but they start from a little bit further back perhaps than BMW, Toyota, Ferrari and Honda the more powerful engines in Formula One, and so it's not really a Renault track.
As ever, the Renault mighty under braking, and Sato getting himself out of shape in turn 10. Alonso not close enough to punish him for that, but he's really beginning to put him under pressure now. Michael Schumacher's lead down to 9.1 seconds. Just had a very slow lap. I wonder if he's beginning to back out of it now towards the end of the Grand Prix. But 12 laps to go, why would he be going quite so slow at this stage?
Well, I tell you who's going fast, and that's Jenson Button. Just took a whole second and a bit out of Juan Montoya with 12 laps to go here. And Jenson Button is just over 3 seconds behind Juan Montoya and closing fast. If he can take another second a lap out of him in the next few laps, that really will be action stations for Jenson Button. Into the pits comes Ralf Schumacher below us, and that will promote the battle we were looking at between Sato and Alonso. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, the stop going well. He managed not to run over any of his mechanics this time. Good final stop then for Ralf Schumacher. Should rejoin about 9th or 10th, but look out for Coulthard. Where is he in this mix?
Coulthard is lapping slowly in the 133s. That's not really where the action is at the moment. There's Montoya, and there is Jenson Button. As you said, James, 3.5 seconds behind him. They've been going through traffic, so not lapping particularly quickly. Barrichello under 10 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Where is it now? Schumacher's just done a 32.0. He's definitely lapping more slowly. And we'll have to wait and see. The gap, though, up to 9.9. Barrichello lapping slowly, too. Our Ferrari beginning to pace themselves to the end of the race.
I wonder. Well, it's certainly building up to a grandstand finish here in Bahrain. John Button there, Jenson's father, on the right of your screens. That's Montoya. Button is closing in on him. This is lap 47. Schumacher and Barrichello at the front. And this is the battle for the final podium position, which will be joined very shortly indeed. So Schumacher, Barrichello, just 10 seconds separating the two of there. Montoya, 24 seconds, as it has been really for a large part of the middle chunk of this Grand Prix. But at the moment, the Ferraris do seem to be going a little slower than they were. In fact, everybody's eased off the pace a little bit. They've just had a round of fuel stops not that long ago. And off the track then goes Zsolt Baumgartner in the Minardi with what looks like smoke pouring out of the engine cover there at the back.
Intriguingly, his fuel flap is up, therefore his pit lane speed limiter is probably on. So strange there. Then Montoya crosses the line, 32.5. Button's going to cross the line in a 32.2. The gap down to 2.7 seconds. Alonso made a mistake behind Sato and still nowhere near passing him. He's just a second adrift though. Alonso struggling to get on terms of Sato. Coulthard now up into 8th place and a points-paying position.
And what is going to happen here? I said before that Jenson Button VAR team felt they had a strong car under them. Certainly were confident on the brakes. David Rich is there, the team principal of BAR, who's overseen this development. BAR aiming to be a top team. Little puff of smoke there from Montoya, indicating he has got some braking issues, I think. It's going to be an exciting showdown, this. Just 10 laps to go in the inaugural Bahrain Grand Prix in the desert. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. 9 to go, in fact, now, as Michael Schumacher has crossed the start-finish line to begin lap 49. But this is the focus of our interests. Look how much the gap has come down. Juan Montoya, we believe, has some slight braking problems. We're seeing little puffs of smoke coming from the brakes as he's struggling to get the car slowed down. Jenson Button, I mentioned earlier, they were confident that they could go the full distance very aggressively with this car, and he is now closing right in on the back of Juan Montoya. The gap is tumbling like a fruit machine.
Montoya sounded sick as he went past. Some strange noise going on as he went past. And look, Button right up behind him. There are 3 fights to watch out for. This one for 3rd place. And Alonso still fighting hard with Sato over 6th place. Ralf Schumacher beginning to catch Coulthard for the final points position. And did I hear correctly as they passed the commentary box? Is there a slight misfire coming from that Williams? Now Button just steering a 2nd podium position in the face, in the shape of the rear wing of Montoya, and he's through. I think Montoya's got a problem. No, he's gone in too deep. Montoya cuts back inside him. Jensen outbraked himself. Montoya doesn't have any power. What's the point in trying to keep him behind you when your engine is sick? Montoya struggling. Surely he's going to come under further pressure from Trulli, Sato, Alonso and Coulthard.
Indeed he is. It's all going a bit pear-shaped for the BMW Williams of Montoya. Look how much speed he's losing. That's Jarno Trulli who's going to grab him. Let's see if we can hear the engine. Yes, well, you heard it as it went past us. Sounds all right going up the hill, doesn't it? Maybe they've got an intermittent problem of some sort. Certainly we've seen puffs of brake dust as well, and brakes clearly a bit of an issue there. But Trulli now, Montoya went very slowly down that short straight, and now he's picked the pace up again.
Yeah, it's an intermittent problem, but for sure, obviously you can just see he's losing hand over fist to the others. So Button then will cross the line now in 3rd place, 30 seconds behind Michael Schumacher in the lead. And Montoya, yeah, it's sick. And Montoya clearly under pressure. Just gone past our window there, that's why I'm saying that. Clearly under pressure. Lost the place then to Jarno Trulli. Sato, though, is 25 seconds down the road. Too far to go, isn't there? He's got too far to go. Montoya, I don't think, is going to get any serious bundle of points this afternoon.
Well, let's have a look at it. Montoya's last lap was a 1:41.8. Sato's lapping in the low 1:33s. There he is with Alonso just crossing the line, 6 and 7. So we're giving away, what, 8 seconds a lap, and the gap is 25 seconds. We've got 8 laps to go. Plenty of time for these guys to catch Juan Montoya, and that's presuming that the problem doesn't get any worse. So Michael Schumacher leading by 10 seconds from Barrichello. Button 20 seconds behind the Ferrari of Barrichello. Montoya now 4th, and then Trulli 5th. Montoya 5th because Trulli has passed him. Sato, Alonso 6, 7, 8 is Coulthard, 9 Ralf Schumacher.
Sato having to go defensive. Alonso doing one of his banzais. He really has not positioned that Renault well today to make good overtaking moves. He eventually gets it sorted out, but Alonso then with no clear way past at the moment, but 2 back markers in the way. Will they get the blue flags? Will they respect the blue flags? Because it's 6th and 7th that are coming through. One of them, the Minardi, clearly moves out of the way. Sato driving well.
Well, as they aimed as blue flags being waved, you can see Sato's having a great afternoon. Let's try and get some sort of update as Alonso has a look at Sato. I want to get down to Ted Kravitz, who's going to... I know he's got some news for us on Juan Montoya's braking situation, but Alonso is so close to the back of Sato. I'll stick with this for a minute, and we'll get that information from Ted in a second. Huge plumes of dust there as the cars go offline.
Yeah, I think it was Sato went very slowly into the corner. I think somebody's been off the road there, kicking something back onto the racetrack. Alonso just in the sweet spot of the slipstream, but the Honda's quick. And no, he thinks, I'm not going to have a silly dive down there at this stage. This is over 6th place. Remember, these 2 drivers have both been in for an extra stop for a new nose cone, and Coulthard cruises into the pits out of 8th place. Schumacher just passed him, and Coulthard, for some reason, surprising his team. Clearly some kind of drama with the car. He was actually stationary. Ted, are you down there?
Yeah, strange, weird. This isn't like McLaren. He's come in, he looked to the pit wall, sort of looked at Ron Dennis. They exchanged kind of, what are you doing here looks. The pit crew weren't ready. They hadn't been called. I didn't see, what did they do to the car in the pit?
Nothing physical, but I wonder whether they reset something.
No, I don't even think they had time to do that. Strange thing. It must be some sort of miscommunication. Now is he conked out at the end of the pit lane?
Yeah, he actually stopped short of the pits like it was braking anyway, and I think they couldn't do anything with it, sent him. But clearly then Coulthard with a technical problem out of the Grand Prix. No points for McLaren. Ralf Schumacher, after his dramatic afternoon, now in the final points-paying position. Now it's all about Alonso and Sato. They're 20 seconds behind Montoya, who's lapping 4 seconds a lap slow. And look, we've got 6 to go. It's going to be very close, isn't it? Montoya desperately trying to nurse that BMW Williams home as Alonso keeps trying to attack Sato. He's got to attack him in the right part of the racetrack, though.
So just 4 points from the first 3 Grand Prix for the McLaren Mercedes team. There'll be a big debrief, I think, after this weekend back in England at Ilmore in Brixworth near Northampton and at the McLaren factory in Surrey. Now, Ted, can you tell us, Ted, what the problem was with Montoya?
Yeah, Montoya is radioed in. He does have a problem with the brakes. Amazingly enough, though, considering the amount of dust coming off it, I've been into Ferrari, they say no, the pedal has gone long on the Ferrari, but there is no problem with wear on their brakes.
Well, certainly the pace of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello is a match for anything anybody's doing through the field. Really, only Ralf Schumacher, who's a long way back, 70 seconds back, is pushing very, very hard indeed to try and salvage something from his afternoon in 8th place. But the 2 Ferraris are not struggling for pace at the moment, it would seem.
I think Montoya's, you don't go slow down the straights when you've got a problem with your brakes, you just lift off early. And we quite clearly saw him not accelerating out of corners cleanly and making strange noises as he came down the pit straight. There is your 3rd place man, Button. He's 5 seconds ahead of Jarno Trulli, so he cannot, as ever, just like in Malaysia, cannot relax into that final podium slot. At the moment, we look like they've got a carbon copy of 2 weeks ago in Malaysia. Yellow flags waving. What is going on down there? Button goes through the corner. Somebody has run over the cone. That's what it is. The cone standing out in the middle of the racetrack down at turn 4.
Well, I think if we need proof that you're perhaps only getting half the story down there in the Williams garage, Ted, just looking at the straight line speeds here, Juan Montoya is doing 222 kilometers an hour down through the speed trap. His teammate Ralf Schumacher at the same place is doing 253. That's 30 kilometers an hour difference through the speed trap, and that has got to be because he's got a problem, an intermittent problem with the engine. That's a huge amount of speed to be giving away.
Yeah, and he's now only 5 seconds ahead of the scrap between Sato and Alonso. So whatever it is getting slower. Last time around, Montoya lost 10 seconds. He'll be lucky to score a point. I think he will just about score a point because Webber's a long way behind. 4 laps to go.
A little puff of dust there. Everybody, as you said, Martin, was surprised how heavy this racetrack is on brakes. That is the back of Montoya's car, and we are riding with Fernando Alonso.
This is for position.
Sato, I think, has already gone through. We've just cut to it as the second in that car in that train. The Sato-Alonso battle, which was the battle for 6th place, now becomes the battle for 5th. Montoya losing more and more ground.
BA Honda then 3rd and 5th. Sato appears to have the measure, doesn't he, of Alonso now. They're pretty much similar on pace. He's not making mistakes. Alonso's going to have to find something special. There we go then. And Montoya, defenseless Montoya, just having to watch the Honda-powered BAR and the Renault easily cruise past him. Here it is again. This is the scrap, as you say, James, now for 5th position. Sato, who is under investigation after the end of the Grand Prix for an incident with Ralf Schumacher, and we don't know if that'll give him a penalty. Won't give him a penalty during this Grand Prix, that's for sure.
So Alonso, has he settled for 6th place behind Sato? Has he, heck? He's one of the breed that believes that you push as hard as you can right through to the end of the Grand Prix. It's been a terrific afternoon, really, for the BAR team, and Takuma Sato, Jenson Button up in 3rd place, heading for a 2nd straight podium. And what an enormous boost the first one gave the team in Malaysia 2 weeks ago. Critical time for BAR as well, Martin, because obviously they need to renew the deal with Honda. That's ongoing. It's on for discussion at the moment. And these 2 results could mean the difference between BAR really going forward strongly with Honda and a different outcome. So it's hard to overestimate how important these results are for BAR today.
Yeah, I would think it's job done already, actually, in that respect. Sato then is a minute behind the leader. He's P5. He's a minute behind Michael Schumacher. The Ferraris undulating around the 132, 133. They've got the race in the bag. Not only are they fast, they are super reliable, of course. There is Michael Schumacher. He's on lap 55. Jarno Trulli is not making an impression on Jenson Button. He's still 5 seconds behind, so Button third, Trulli fourth, lapping pretty similar race pace, but Button cannot relax. He will have to keep pushing right to the checkered flag.
And Ralf Schumacher now in the BMW Williams has passed his teammate Juan Montoya, so Montoya's got to hold on for another 3 laps. He's only got 30 seconds over Mark Webber, who, because of the low temperatures, it's only 30-degree track temperature today, 20 degrees less than it's been throughout the rest of this weekend. Once again, that has played into the hands of these men here. Juan Pablo Montoya on the softer Michelin tyre. Well, he's had some problems. His engine's been a bit of a possible problem, his brakes too. He fought hard, was in third place, but he's now dropping back through the field. We've seen some great scraps. Jenson Button, Jarno Trulli, Ralf Schumacher, Sato had a bit of a tangle, took each other off earlier in the race. Fernando Alonso had some early damage. He's been very, very active today. Kimi Raikkonen, once again unlucky. He had some sort of technical failure. Looked like an engine blow-up possibly. And David Coulthard pulled into the pits as well, so a poor day for McLaren, but it's been a pretty much of a perfect day for this man.
Significant too, as Michael Schumacher puts a lap on the ailing Juan Pablo Montoya, who was in third place in the World Championship, or is currently until the end of this race, and the only one anywhere near them, as you can hear it spluttering away. Jenson Button will go into third in the World Championship with, if it stays like this, he'll be their nearest competitor. They'll be miles away too, so it's looking so good for Ferrari. But Button will be third in the World Championship. How's the battles going on? Alonso still tucked up behind Sato. Sato refusing to give in or make an error.
Well, Montoya going to fall into the clutches of Mark Webber, is he? Quite possibly. Let's have a word from Ted. Ted not there. Oh, Ted, are you there?
I'm here. It's a problem, I think, with the gear changing. It sounds like every time he goes past, he's got a misfire, but I think it's probably gear change, gear selection, or even hydraulic problem.
Well, we'll find out, I'm sure, at the end of the Grand Prix, which has undoubtedly been a success, the first Grand Prix here in Bahrain. It's been a huge success for Ferrari. Ross Brawn has time for his customary banana on the pit wall. His brain wasn't really called into much use today because the 2 Ferraris really had the thing bought and paid for, largely thanks to the weather, but also reliability. Once again, a critical part of their success, because McLaren and Williams.
Out of 30 as he heads towards the final turn, James, and just cruising. Look, that just sums it up, doesn't it? Absolutely sums it up. He's a half a minute ahead of Button, and he can afford to do that. It's going to be a formation finish just about. Barrichello coming up nicely behind him.
Well, the crowd here in Bahrain have seen Formula One for the first time. Judging by the noise, they like what they see as Michael Schumacher crosses the start-finish line. Rubens Barrichello put on a real spurt there, just in case the finish line was somewhere different from where the checkered flag was. It wasn't, of course. It's a 1-2 again for Ferrari. Barrichello finishing just over a second behind his teammate. It's 3 in a row then for Schumacher. First time he's done that since the 2000 season. And there is Jenson Button. It's 2 podiums in a row. Come on, you beauty, say the men on the pit wall. What a great run for Jenson Button and BAR.
Indeed, Sato managed to beat Alonso across the line too, so he took 5th, 3rd and 5th for BAR, Alonso 6th, Ralf Schumacher 7th, Webber, we believe, getting a World Championship point, Montoya slipping all the way down to 13th on the final lap, which took him over 2 minutes. He's only just crossed the line.
Excuse me, sir. After they come off the
Ferrari team riding the barrier down below us. Pulling their hair as they go in. الفراري في المركز الاول والثاني وتحيه من جماهير الفراري الموجودين طبعا في المشاة. And for the second time in his career, Jensen Button is on the podium here. Drivers just behind the podium, just behind the roster at the moment. Just relaxing. Before we see them on the roster, they'll be out there shortly. وهذا هو سواء جلسة على الشاشة ومعنا اليوم روبنز مارسيلو والذي نرى وهو على مايكل شوماخر. إذا جلسة الثاني مرة كان على منصة التلفزيون الحقيقة. الحلم أصبح حقيقة. مملكة البحرين تستضيف ثالث سباق للفورمولا 1 على أرضها الحبيبة، على أرضها المضيافة، والفضل طبعا للقيادة الرشيدة. Ladies and gentlemen,